Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 337 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. Well, it's warm and I've no doubt that beehives are going to be inspected all over the UK in the coming days. I have a cautionary tale for you. Also, following on from last week, today I'm having a think about colonies used for queen cell development, particularly using the Cloake Board method. It's one I've used and had great success with in the past. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. Before we get into today's beekeeping conversation, and in the absence of anyone else supporting my podcast with an advert or two, here's my little self-promotion again. For all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now. And if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,600 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible, no waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2025 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey, and you never know, there may be something there that will help you improve your beekeeping. Head over to Google and search for Patreon and the Norfolk Honey Company. Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I hope you are all very well and as eager as I am to get down to the apiary and see what's going on. If you've listened to my podcast for any period of time, you'll have heard me say something along the lines of, let's hope for a fast start this season, or fingers crossed we get a warm spring start this year. Well, we really must start with a weather update, because here in the UK we have a giant area of high pressure that's settled over us, and that means clear skies, cold nights, frosty mornings, but for the first few days of spring, very warm afternoon temperatures, hitting something like 14 degrees Celsius in some parts. That's a crazy 57 degrees Fahrenheit. T-shirt weather, if ever there was T-shirt weather, certainly for some, and that means hives across the UK will be getting their first inspections. I'm a little bit on the fence with this. I suppose not so much on the fence, but maybe a little more do it if you have to, but otherwise leave them to do their own thing and just enjoy watching them being active. It's still very early for us, and likely that more harm than good will be done if general inspections go ahead for no reason at all. Let's visit one of my apiaries and look at a couple of hives. Both have come through the winter. It's early afternoon. I'm making this up, as you can appreciate. It's early afternoon. Both colonies have flying bees, but one is far busier than the other. I'm excited for the new season and want to see desperately what's going on inside those colonies, so I inspect both. One is very small and could do with some food. That's the one where the bees are not flying much. Stands to reason, really. The other is full of bees and brood and food, and I couldn't be happier. Didn't see the queen in the second one. I did see the queen in the first one, and I saw eggs in both. I add a little more fondant to the quiet colony. I'm thinking that probably they're going to struggle into spring if they make it, so no honey from them until maybe later in the summer. But the other hive I'm really excited about. There wasn't really anything to do in that hive, and I didn't see any drones or anything, but boy, they look like they're going to give me a fantastic crop of honey, certainly off the oilseed rape this year. I'm excited. Now, this is all make-believe, of course, and to sum up my little inspection session, the smaller colony needed a quick inspection to make sure all was okay, which it was, but they just needed a little help with some food, so it was good to check them. The larger colony I'm really happy with. They've come through the winter as my strongest colony. Loads of food still in the brood box, and they were under-supered anyway, so always had enough, and didn't really need inspecting, if I'm honest. All that said, I'm really looking forward to a spring crop from them, and I'm telling all of my beekeeping friends who will listen just how fantastic they're looking, how well they've done coming out of the winter, and to be honest, I'm feeling a little smug about it. Okay, let's fast forward a little. We've had a week of warm sunny weather, cold nights and frosty mornings, but warm during the day, and the bees are still out flying when I've been back to have a look, so all is well. I've not been able to get into the hives again for a couple of weeks because, well, work commitments get in the way, so I'm keen to have another inspection and maybe add a super to the large one by moving that super that's beneath the brood box back above a queen excluder. On this inspection, I find the little colony actually is doing just fine. The food I added in the form of fondant is being taken down. I'm seeing bees flying back with pollen, and their brood nest area is expanding a little bit. Not by much, but they're doing okay. The larger colony, however, makes me want to cry. All I'm seeing is queen cells. No eggs, no open brood, some sealed brood, but it looks like they've swarmed. Or have they? The queen cells are scattered around the frame, not a typical swarm cell position towards the bottom of the frame, and I'm a little bit confused, and I'm only really just seeing a few drone cells, and those are capped. I'm still not actually seeing any drones in this colony, or actually anything else. I look again, but I still don't see any eggs. Surely they must have swarmed, or maybe they've become queenless somehow. I knock down all the queen cells except one, because that's what I've been told is the right thing to do, and I close the hive, go back indoors, kick the cat, shout at the kids, and ignore all the messages from my beekeeping friends on my phone telling me they've still not inspected their bees, but they're seeing lots of flying bees and they're all bringing back loads of pollen. I speak to a more experienced beekeeper about this situation, and I'm told I may have accidentally killed the queen when I carried out my very early inspection. Fingers crossed that there are some drones about for my virgin queen to mate with, hopefully. I leave them for a couple of weeks longer. We're now into spring proper, and the smaller colony is doing just fine, building up. More bees now, forage is bringing back pollen, and I'm feeling really happy about them. My other colony also seems to have recovered. The virgin queen has indeed emerged, been out, mated I guess because she's now laying eggs. There's not many, but it is a start. Time passes and I inspect them again. My small colony is no longer my small colony, but has grown strongly now and receives a queen excluder and a super. The other colony is no longer the bigger, stronger colony. Winter bees have died, and early season bees have suffered with an enforced brood break caused by that missing queen. Could I really have killed her? Should I have ever inspected them at such an early time in the season? Oh well, they'll recover for a summer crop at least, and I can talk to everyone about how my little colony is doing so well. So I'm back on social media once more. Another couple of weeks pass. Only now do I realise that my early mated virgin queen is actually a drone-laying queen. She didn't mate successfully after all. The colony is getting smaller and smaller day by day, and I'm struggling to find the queen, so I can't replace her. Time passes, I do find the queen, remove her, and put in a frame of eggs from my other colony. Are you folks getting the picture here? That frame of eggs produces some queen cells, one of which emerges and mates successfully this time. She lays eggs. Those workers emerge 21 days later, and finally the colony starts to recover. Unfortunately, now we're into midsummer, and it's all getting a little bit late for this colony, all because I got a little excited and carried away and did that very early inspection way back at the beginning of March. Now look, this is an extreme, I have to say unlikely scenario, but it happens. I know the timeline is a little squiffy, but hopefully I'm making the point, and I guess unfortunately someone here in the UK is going to do just this and probably suffer the same consequences. Leave your bees alone for another week or two at least, unless you see something amiss that needs attention, and then act. Otherwise, at this time of the year, you really are likely to do more harm than good for most of your colonies. So with that warning in place, let's turn the podcast towards something much more positive and interesting, hopefully. And that's our queen rearing efforts for this year. And an important part of that process, the cell builder colony. For those of you that are new to the whole queen rearing thing, it may seem like there are an awful lot of terms out there that get talked about which seem almost too difficult to get your head around. But don't let that put you off. I hope I can explain for you the simple idea of what we term a cell builder colony, why it's useful to have, how to set one up, and make the best use of it. And we use particularly the Cloake Board method, which has been really successful for us. So, you want to raise more than a dozen or so queens. Before we get started on this cell builder situation, let's state quite clearly here, queen production, to get what you want, requires a lot of queens, most of which will fail to meet up to expectations and will need removing from the gene pool. Just bear that in mind. It's a numbers game after all, and we need lots of queens to get the ones we really want to use. With this in mind, using a cell builder colony becomes economical in terms of your resources, and if used well can also supply you with a crop of honey in some instances. So, what is a cell builder colony? Well, it's simply a colony that we use to produce queen cells. They can be queenless or have a laying queen, as in today's subject, the Cloake Board method. Another term you might hear is a finisher colony. Now these are used where queen cells have been started in a cell builder, but that colony is required to produce more queen cells. So the unfinished or uncapped queen cells are moved into other colonies called finisher colonies. I'm not going to talk about those today, as the Cloake Board method for me is an all-in-one solution for us where we want to raise a decent number of queen cells but not go into mass production. So let's look at setting up the Cloake Board this week, and next week I'll go through the process step by step for you. Our Cloake Board that we use is a combination queen excluder tray with a slot in it for a slide-in board that can be used to split the colony between two brood boxes, thus creating a queen-right colony in the bottom box and a queenless colony in the top box. The original style Cloake Board, I guess, is just an eek with a slot for a board to be inserted into it and a small area as an entrance. It's very similar in size and design to a Bailey board, if you're struggling to imagine what I'm talking about. So the Cloake Board is just a small part of the final cell builder queen rearing colony setup. Our Cloake Board colony starts life as any other colony, but importantly, it's a double brood colony with no queen excluder. So as the spring progresses, we get an ever-increasing brood nest area spread between the two brood boxes with lots of frames of brood in all stages. When we get to the point of queen rearing, the colony gets set up very specifically. It's simple enough and is kept as a queen-right colony all the way through. We're looking for a very strong queen-right colony in the spring, almost on the point of swarming. So they could be short on space, for instance. If you have a colony with an older queen, maybe 2 years old, or if you have a good queen that's even older, that's just fine. The reason for this is we use the supersedure impulse to produce queen cells, and that requires a reduction in the queen's pheromones so that the workers believe she's failing and hence produce supersedure queen cells. When we're ready to get going, we need to set up the hive in the following way. Our double brood colony gets split down, and I've always found it easier to have some spare equipment, particularly a spare brood box for this. First off, find the queen, cage her and keep her somewhere safe, out of direct sunlight, not on the dash of your car, truck or van. And if she's not marked, now would be a good time to do so. It'll help in the future when you want to try and find her again. Hopefully, by now, listening to my podcast, you'll know the first thing you have to do is to make sure that this colony is healthy and there's no disease in it. There's no point using a colony for queen rearing if it's full of disease. If we're using this colony for grafting into cell cups, that frame that contains the empty cell cups is placed in the middle of an empty brood box, hence the spare one that I brought along. And for this example, let's just pretend that we're going to graft into cell cups, and I'll talk about the other methods that we can use perhaps next week or the week after. So we have our empty cell cups in a frame in the middle of the brood box. Next to this, on either side, frames containing mature larvae are added, one on each side. Remember, you have 2 brood boxes to choose from, so you should be able to find the right kind of frames. Next to these, 2 frames of pollen, again, one on either side, and I guess this always confuses people. These frames don't have to be absolutely full of pollen, just the best pollen frames that you can find. Personally, I never really find entire frames of pollen, so just pick one with the most pollen, or if you've collected and frozen some from last year, add this pollen to some frames before placing them into the brood box. Next up is unsealed honey or nectar. If you only have sealed honey, scrape the cappings off so that the honey is easily accessible. If you have any space left, add empty frames with unsealed honey, or you could always add frames with foundation. So that's going to be the top box. All of the remaining frames are placed in the bottom box, with the brood frames in the central area, as you would normally find, with food frames or foundation on the outside. And remember to introduce your queen into the bottom box again. Now we rebuild the hive to include the cloake board. So, we have the following beehive set up in a very specific way. The floor and brood box containing the queen go onto the stand, but the hive, and this is important, the hive is turned around so the entrance is facing the opposite direction. That's a turn of 180 degrees. Next comes our cloake board with the insert in place. If you're using a separate cloake board and queen excluder setup, the queen excluder goes first and then the cloake board on top. The trick here is that the cloake board entrance faces the opposite to the bottom entrance, so it is in fact facing the direction of the very original entrance before we started messing around with them. The queenless brood box goes on top next, followed by a feeder if you're using one instead of maybe frame feeders, which can go in the box instead of one of those outside frames of food. But I prefer the top feeder, and it's a very simple reason why. We have top feeders and not frame feeders, so we simply use what we have. Add some light syrup, and if pollen is in short supply, add some pollen substitute before making up the hive as I've described. If it's likely to be cool at night, and certainly for us it is likely to be, add some top insulation to keep them warm in that top box. Finally, and here's one of the tricks, add a sloping board to the front of the hive to guide the returning foragers up to and into the top box, dramatically increasing the population of this now seemingly queenless colony. And that's it. The cloake board hive is now set up, ready for you to get cracking with some queen rearing. Next week, I'll talk about the process of using this hive to produce some really fantastic queen cells. So good, in fact, you'll probably want to post pictures of them all over social media. Well, that's it for this week. Don't forget to check out my website, www.norfolk-honey.co.uk, and for my latest videos and podcasts with more updates, tips and techniques, it's the same Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Norfolk Honey. And remember, I'm Stewart Spinks, and that was Beekeeping Short and Sweet.